Now, astonishing figures out today because the UK's population is set to rocket to 72.5 million by mid-2032. Don't forget, that's only just over 7 years away. The projection released today by the Office for National Statistics is driven almost entirely by net migration, with a 5 million net increase in the next 10 years. Now, let's bring in GB News political editor Chris Hope, and I'm also joined in the studio by Reform UK's MP for Ashfield, Lee Anderson, and the political commentator Matthew Stadlen. I predict the fur is going to fly. Before that, Chris Hope, let's look at the data. Mind-blowing data. 5 years ago this Friday, we voted to finally leave the European Union. Take back control was the mantra, increasingly looking like a lie that we're all sold. These figures blow it out of the water. 4.9 million net, but hidden within that, 9.9 million immigrants coming in, almost 10 million coming in by 2032. Nobody voted for this. Nobody wants this. What on earth is going on?
Well, I think you're wrong to blame Brexit. I think this is done with the connivance of the last Tory government. They had the controls to control net migration and chose not to. That is the point. Illegal migration is something which is apparently uncontrollable from the Tory government and looking like the Labour government. But these numbers are simply a litany of a failure of a Tory government which said it would cap net migration at fewer than 100,000 a year and failed to, and failed through, I think, 4 elections. They are forced on a policy of bringing it down or capping it, and didn't work. Look at these numbers here. 4.9% million increase between 2022 and 2032. Average level of projected migration, 340,000 a year. That's projected, not predicted. Projected because it's based on current government policy. So it is possible for this government to pull it back. They've got a white paper published in a few weeks' time. That's meant to be further controls on net migration.
Well, that'll sort it all out. Well, we'll bring a white paper out. Might as well raise a white flag. 6 months so far, Martin. Give them a chance. But the Tory party is saying it can and must be stopped from materialising. Well, some would argue that the Tories have lost all right to comment on net migration, given their failure for 14 years. Nigel Farage, the Reform UK leader, and Lee Anderson's party leader, says our quality of life is deteriorating due to the population explosion. What he means by that is that GDP per capita is not improving. So bringing in more cheap labour, undercutting British jobs, doesn't make us all richer, although the overall pie gets bigger, but we are poorer individually. That's the problem here. And just finally, the PM and Rachel Reeves out today talking about growth. They're going to try and get hold of defined benefit schemes, use that money, £160 billion in there to spend on growth. Apparently, I've talked to this expert this morning, that won't be a problem if the benefit schemes form the deficit. That the trustees should have dealt with that problem by now. It was a problem 20 years ago. And all new government policies coming from the cabinet must have at the heart a commitment to grow. If they're not going to grow the economy, they could be rejected by the PM. So all eyes on growth into tomorrow. This cannot possibly grow the economy. Not long term, because if you look at the types of people...
Well, it can do, that's the point. But individually...
It doesn't grow the economy in terms of GDP per capita.
Well, that's it.
If you flood the economy with loads of Deliveroo drivers and low-skilled labour, that's ostensibly, let's be honest, the vast majority of immigrants to this country are low-skilled, non-EU countries. The facts are the facts. The same is the same across continental Europe. These are not brain surgeons. The tiny minority of them, of desirable immigrants from America, from South Africa, from Australia, the whole world wants them. They're a tiny amount. The huge amount aren't a net benefit to the economy. The facts are the facts. When are they going to wake up to this?
Well, they do. About 6 times the spokesman of the PM called it staggeringly high. They do blame the past Tory government correctly. They have failed, and they recognise the need to do it. But going back to your original point, Brexit Day Friday is nothing to do with it. And Brexit gave the power back to the government to control net migration. They haven't done it, and that's on the Tories.
I wasn't blaming Brexit. Brexit was the opportunity. Yeah. We were sold the illusion of control. My point is, they never actually did it. Let's get this to the panel now, and let's get to Lee Anderson. Lee, you're sort of foaming at the mouth in the corner there. I can hear you.
Can I just say I've never sat quite this close to Lee Anderson.
You're enjoying it, aren't you?
I'm very glad that I've been doing my pull-ups.
You're wearing your red tie, he's wearing his blue tie.
And thank goodness for that, Martin. Look, I mean, this must be an AI version of the chopper, because I actually agree with probably all that he's said so far. So there's something going off there. There must be a glitch in the system, Chopper.
It's been hacked by the Chinese.
He is quite right that migration has been out of control. It started with Blair. It went to the Tory government were actually worse, and it looks like it's going to continue under this government. And you're quite right, Martin, nobody in this country voted for it. It's making us all poorer. Chopper is half right when he says it does sort of grow the economy, but we're less productive. And I was always taught, even in basic economics at school, the way you become more productive in this country is to do more with less people. And what we're actually doing is we're doing more, but with a lot more people. We see nail bars opening, barbershops opening. We see all these fast food places. We see Deliveroo. You can't shift on the streets of London for people cycling about delivering pizzas and hot dogs. These aren't contributing towards the economy. They're taking far more out than they're actually paying in. It's an absolute nonsense. These lunatics over here that work in Parliament, I sit with them, I've been sat there this morning, they haven't got a clue. Well, I mean, if the cat fits, Matthew, we don't know, it probably does. But these lunatics over there haven't got a clue what it's like to live in the real world. They're not queuing up for a doctor's appointment, they don't have to pull their own teeth out, they're not queuing up for a council house, and they're not bothered about, they're not worried about what school the kids are going to go to, because they probably go to a private school. It's absolutely disgusting. We're letting the country down, and that place should hang its head in shame.
Matthew Stadlen, over to you. The Labour Party have to do something about this. We can blame the Conservatives historically all we like. That's done. We are where we are. This is a forward-looking, massive problem. Labour Party got to act.
No, there's no doubt immigration is a very difficult and complicated and nuanced issue, and a broad brush stroke is potentially damaging to the country. I don't know whether it's still your policy, Lee, but Richard Tice, in the build-up to the election, was talking about essentially, not his words, mine, running the country like a nightclub. One in, one out. That doesn't pay attention to the fluctuating needs of a society. Now, is immigration too high? In my view, and it is just one view, I think it is too high. I think the pace of change in recent years has been too fast.
Have you been hacked by the Chinese AI as well?
But we have problems, right? I can understand, although it's not nice for them, I can understand why if you have to bring people in to help us with our NHS and social care, they don't necessarily have to bring dependents. Okay?
Yes.
Not as nice for them, but I can't see how if you're bringing someone in to make the health service work better, and they then bring more people who might need to use their NHS, that doesn't quite compute to me. Similarly with students, I cannot understand, and this has changed as well, these two things changed in the latter days of the Tory administrations, I can't understand why students were able to bring dependents.
Yeah.
That just doesn't make any sense. Well, the reason is because universities say they would collapse without it. Well, I'm sorry, they've got to get their budgets in order without relying on the dependence of overseas students.
I can't believe this. I'm agreeing with Matthew Stadlen.
But hang on, but it's the tone of the debate, I think, that partly matters. Because there'll be a lot of people watching GB News today, and there are millions of people around the country who have come in from abroad to make our country better. And so when we're talking about immigration, when we're talking about immigration, Lee, let's not slag off whole tranches of our population. Because you don't need to do that. Let's have a grown-up conversation about it.
Let's be grown up. People have not come into this country to make our country better. They've come into this country. No, they haven't. Of course they have. They haven't, Matthew. They've come into this country to make their lives better.
Well, two things can be true at the same time. The people who helped my dad die a dignified death and helped me change his pads when he was dying from asbestos poisoning.
Where were they from?
They were all of them, to a man and a woman from other countries.
Which countries? Which countries?
Mostly African countries.
So why aren't they stopping in their own country to help their own people?
Because presumably the pay is better here, and because people here aren't doing it.
You've just answered the argument.
Yes, but they're also helping us, Lee.
Matthew, what we're doing?
They are giving us labour.
We are brain draining countries like Africa, India and the subcontinent, and we're taking their best doctors, their surgeons, their nurses, and we're bringing them over here, and it is wrong.
And why are we doing it?
These people should stay in their own country and help their own country develop and get better.
Ideally, absolutely agree with you. But in order for that to happen, because you are someone who wants to look after British interests first,
yes, I do.
As am I, in order for that to happen, we have to have people who are prepared to do those sorts of jobs. And I'm not just talking about doctors here. I'm talking about people who are prepared to change the pads of our parents when they are dying. And if we don't have those people, or if we're not paying them enough, right, then we're going to have to bring people
No, we
in from
don't. We
abroad.
don't. We've got millions of people in this country economically inactive, on the dole, doing nothing, sat at home
So
all
how do we
day
get
watching
those
TV.
people back into work?
Stop the benefits, Matthew.
What, so we
You
want
go to
the
work,
lining of the streets. Like if you drive from Mumbai airport into the centre of Mumbai, you have whole families, hundreds, if not thousands of them,
you know, in the
sleeping
world,
on the streets.
in the world,
do you want that to happen
listen,
in this country?
in the world of Matthew Stadlin, everybody sat at home now, eating pizza, mental health problems, watching the TV, and not going to work. Is that what you want?
No,
They
it's not
should
what
go
I want.
to work, Matthew,
no, it's not what I
and
want.
contribute to our society. It's nonsense.
But it is a balance to strike because you
There's
can't
no
pretend
balance.
that mental
Go
health
to
and
work.
physical health do not exist.
Go to work, do a job, pay,
do exist.
contribute towards society.
Ideally, absolutely.
All right,
what are your
gents.
policies other than blaming immigrants?
Gents, that's the next question. What is the answer to this? We can all moan each other about this till
I'll
the
give you
cows
one
come
answer.
home.
I'll give you one answer.
You
I'll
go,
give you one.
you go first.
Train
and then
up.
You go first. What do we do?
Train up British people
Hurrah.
because there's a whole range of different jobs that we're talking about, right?
Yes.
And if you want to get your food delivered, and I don't, I actually bother to use my legs and
I'm
go and
the
get
same,
it.
actually.
Lee's right. London is a much more difficult place to get around because of people charging around on delivery bikes and delivery mopeds. It's also more dangerous, in my view. Now, do we need that? I would suggest no, we don't need those sorts of services. And I can tell you one thing: if we do away with immigration, so you don't get people from abroad to do them, we're not going to get English people darting around risking their lives on these bikes. Okay,
Well,
so we may find
the
some
job?
agreement. That may find some agreement. Another solution, by the way, to this is that the government needs to get tougher on illegal immigration. Right? I'm not blaming the individuals themselves. They, as Lee accepts, want to come here at least in part for a better life themselves. But you have to have a rules-based system.
Okay.
And the politics of this is, if Labour doesn't get a grip on legal migration and illegal migration quite quickly in the next few years, never mind what the Tories did in the past, I think they will lose the next election because a lot of people care about it. And by the way, although a lot of racists are out there and do use these sorts of stories to further their racist agenda and hide behind them, there are a lot of people who are not racist, but who think the pace of change is too quickly, is going too quickly. They can't get the services that they want.
OK, Lee Anderson, you've been waiting patiently. Have a quick go.
Well, I mean, again, I find myself agreeing with a lot of what Matthew says. I mean, there's something in the air
someone
today.
recording this?
I'm agreeing with Chopper and Matthew Stadlin on GB News. It's unbelievable.
You're not paid to agree with each other, lads.
The solution, it's not, politics is not complicated. This is not a complicated issue.
This is complex,
It's
though.
not.
It's deeply complicated.
It's not complicated.
How do you get those people back in? You'll just take the benefits away.
Can I ask you one question? If Nigel Farage becomes PM in 2029, as the polls say might happen as the biggest party in a coalition of Tories and Reform, according to that poll we find out now last week, what is your policy on net migration? Would you pursue the nightclub model, the one in, one out model?
I would love to have that sort of model.
And how would that possibly work?
Just pay attention, guys. You might learn something today. I know you might get it through your thick heads.
You got 20 seconds. I'm getting told off.
We've got millions of people in this country doing nothing. We've got people coming into this country on low-skilled jobs, paying hardly any income tax, national insurance, they're earning 20 minimum wage jobs, they're paying nothing in, they're bringing loads of their family members in, they are a drain on our society, they are costing a fortune. Get these people, let's go back in time, a time when... If
To Dickens' time.
No.
Guys,
Let's go back to the
we've got to move
60s,
on.
70s and 80s. Go to bloody work.
OK, on that bombshell, we've got to leave it there. Thank you very much, Lee Anderson. Thank you very much, Matthew Stadlin. Crop Chopper, always a pleasure, never a chore. Fantastic start to the show.